Walter had always been a man of routine. His life revolved around the train, the rhythmic chugging, the hiss of steam, the screech of the brakes. These were the sounds that filled his days and nights. He knew every inch of the engine, every creak of the carriages. Walter was a ghost to most, a shadow in the driver's cabin. Passengers saw only a fleeting glimpse of his weathered face, a silhouette against the flickering light of the furnace. He was respected, even feared, by those who knew him. His silence was unnerving, his gaze intense. He was a man married to the train, his life inseparable from its iron embrace. Walter had no family, no friends to speak of. The train was his only companion. He spent his days oiling its gears, stoking its fire, tending to its every need. He knew its moods, its rhythms, its secrets. And as the years turned into decades, a strange bond began to form between the man and the machine. It was a bond built on solitude, on shared purpose, on a growing darkness that neither could escape. It started subtly, a whisper in the hiss of the steam, a murmur in the clatter of the wheels. At first, Walter dismissed it as the fatigue talking. Long nights on the tracks could play tricks on the mind, but the whispers persisted, growing louder, more insistent. They spoke of balance, of sacrifice, of the train's insatiable hunger. Walter tried to ignore them, to focus on the familiar tasks that kept him sane. But the voices wormed their way into his thoughts, twisting his perception, blurring the lines between reality and delusion. One night the whispers turned into a scream. A young woman stranded on the tracks ahead. Walter slammed the brakes, his heart pounding in his chest. But the train didn't slow. It surged forward, its engine roaring with a newfound fury. The voices in his head were deafening now, commanding him to obey. He felt a surge of panic, a desperate need to fight back. But it was no use. The train had a will of its own, and Walter was no longer in control. The guilt was overwhelming at first. Walter was haunted by nightmares, plagued by the memory of the woman's terrified face. But the train offered him a strange solace. It whispered to him, soothing his conscience, justifying his actions. It told him that the woman's death was necessary, a small sacrifice to appease a much greater hunger. And slowly, insidiously, Walter began to believe. The killings became routine. A lone traveler on a deserted platform, a group of teenagers daring each other to cross the tracks. Walter no longer fought the train's commands. He carried them out with a cold, methodical precision. He saw himself as an instrument of the train's will, a servant to its ancient power. The guilt was replaced by a chilling sense of purpose. He was no longer just an engineer, he was a guardian, a gatekeeper, a reaper of souls. The family boarded the train at dusk. A young couple with 2 children, their faces bright with anticipation for their vacation. Walter watched them from his shadowed cabin, his heart strangely unmoved. The whispers had begun the moment they stepped onto the platform, their voices laced with a chilling hunger. Walter knew what was expected of him. He knew what he had to do. The train roared through the night, its whistle echoing like a mournful cry. Walter steered it towards a remote stretch of track, a place where the trees pressed close to the rails, shrouding the world in darkness. He felt no remorse, no hesitation, only a grim satisfaction as he obeyed the train's unspoken command. The derailment was swift, brutal, merciless, and in the aftermath, amidst the twisted metal and shattered glass, Walter heard the whispers fade to a satisfied hum. The train had been fed. Walter's appearance changed. His skin became pale, his eyes hollow, his gaze distant and unfocused. He rarely spoke, even to the other railway workers. They whispered about him behind his back, calling him Whispering Walter and the Iron Gas. They feared him, avoided him, sensed the darkness that clung to him like a shroud. Walter no longer saw himself as human. He was an extension of the train, a cog in its deadly machinery. He believed that the train demanded balance. For every life it carried, it demanded a life in return. And Walter was the one who maintained that balance. He saw his murders not as acts of evil, but as necessary sacrifices, as rituals to appease a vengeful god. One day Walter disappeared. He didn't show up for his shift and no one could find him. The train sat idle in the station, its engine cold and silent. The railway workers searched high and low, but there was no sign of Walter. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The only clue to his disappearance was a note scrawled in a shaky hand on a scrap of paper found in the driver's cabin. It read, "The train needs me, it always has." Some dismissed it as the ramblings of a madman, others saw it as a chilling confession, a final testament to Walter's descent into madness. But a few, those who had seen the look in Walter's eyes, who had heard the whispers on the wind, knew the truth. Walter hadn't abandoned the train. He had become one with it. Years passed. The story of Walter became a local legend, whispered in hushed tones in railway bars and around campfires. Some dismissed it as a ghost story, a cautionary tale to scare children. But others, those who lived along the abandoned railway lines, knew better. They had seen the phantom train, a hulking spectral silhouette gliding silently through the night. They told stories of strange noises coming from the abandoned tracks, the mournful wail of a train whistle, the rhythmic chugging of an unseen engine, the faint whispers carried on the wind. And sometimes, late at night, when the moon was full and the wind was howling, they swore they could see him, the shadowy figure of a man standing in the driver's cabin of the phantom train, his eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. The legend of Walter and the phantom train spread beyond the small towns and villages that dotted the railway lines. Ghost hunters and thrill-seekers flocked to the area, eager to catch a glimpse of the spectral engine. Some claimed to have seen it, their cameras capturing blurry images of a ghostly train speeding through the night. Others claimed to have heard the train's mournful whistle, its sound sending chills down their spines. The stories varied, but the core remained the same. The train was real. It was out there, somewhere on the abandoned tracks. Its engine fueled by a thirst for vengeance, its whistle a harbinger of doom. And Walter, the once ordinary engineer, was now its eternal captive, his soul bound to the train for all eternity. The truth about Walter's fate, and the fate of those who encountered the phantom train, remained a mystery. Did Walter find peace in his final union with the train? Or was he condemned to an eternity of servitude, forced to carry out the train's bloody will? And what of the passengers on the phantom train? Were they merely spectral echoes of the train's past victims? Or were they living souls, trapped in a nightmarish loop, doomed to ride the rails forevermore? The answers, like the phantom train itself, remained shrouded in mystery. The haunting journey of Walter, the train engineer who became a slave to the rails, served as a chilling reminder that some journeys never truly end. They echo through time, whispered on the wind, a haunting testament to the darkness that lurks at the edges of reality.